Our guest today, boy, you know, if you're a Beatles fan, you're going to know exactly who it is when I say that it's Charles Rosenay, who for many, many years published a magazine on the Beatles called Good Day Sunshine. That's where I first heard about him. He's done quite a bit since then, and he has married his love of the Beatles and pop culture in general and the worlds of horror together in a new book that takes a look at your favorite celebrities and, well, just about everybody's top 10 horror lists. The Book of Top 10 Horror Lists is the title. Charles Rosenay, welcome to the show.
You described it so great because you're right. I married two of my passions, my girlfriend and my wife. No, just kidding. My love of the Beatles and my love of, monster movies and horror and pop culture. And everyone said, Charles, when are you doing that Beatles book? When are you doing the Beatles book? Or when are you doing your memoirs? And somehow this horror book sneaked out and everyone's loving it.
Well, the funny thing about it, you have put together a list of people, and some of these people actually have a connection to the Beatles. So, yeah, in a roundabout way, this would fit very neatly on your Beatles library. But you've got people like Gary Puckett and John Sebastian, Ron Dante. And you know what? As I think about it, and I'm looking at maybe the ages of some of these people, not only are they involved in the music business for the most part, but all of them would fit, I think, the definition of monster kid.
Yes, that's a great call. And that's possibly why a lot of the top 10 lists might skew towards the universal horrors, a lot of Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Phantom type of things, as opposed to the slasher, Chucky, Michael Myers, Jason. Now, they're well represented, but when you look at the ages of some of the contributors who are maybe older, like William Shatner, 90, or Ed Asner, who just passed, so it's not surprising that they're not picking I Know What You Did Last Summer as their favorite, horror film. But what's great is going through the list, and it's not all films, of course, it's other themes too, and seeing, whoa, hey, he's just like me. He loves horror movies. He's somebody I've been listening to his music all the time, or I've seen him play on the baseball field, or I've, seen movies he's directed, and here's a list. And it's 100 celebrities from many aspects. You've got the authors, you've got science fiction people, you've got scream queens, but because I'm, so ingrained with the Beatles and with the 60s and with rock and roll and pop rock and British Invasion, I guess my go-tos were a lot of the people you had mentioned, from that era, like the John Sebastian and the Gary Puckett, Pete Best, Mickey Dolenz, a lot of cool people who hopefully, not just us, but our listeners love as well.
Yeah, I know somebody listening to this right now was probably picking themselves off the floor and saying, Pete Best is a horror fan? I mean, who would have known? It's interesting because that aspect of who they are is not often discussed. I mean, certainly people like Butch Patrick, you'd expect that he would have an opinion on these things. Yeah. But, somebody like John Lennon's sister, who
that's a great, I'm glad you brought her up. That's
Sure.
a great one to bring up because there's two in the book. That's actually three. John Sebastian was one. He only gave a handful of ones, and he gave long stories why he picked the ones he did and how he doesn't like horror movies. They scare him too much. The other one is Sarah Karloff. Boris Karloff's daughter. You would think, oh my gosh, got to be a monster fan. Grew up with watching Daddy's movies. She hates them. She will not watch it. She says, I want to be part of your book. She was a sweetheart. She goes, I'll tell you what, I'll do a list of the 10 things that scare me.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
And number 10 was making this list for your book. So that was great. But what made me think of this was you mentioned John Lennon's sister, Julia Baird, still alive, God bless her, in Liverpool. Still meets fans when we come over with our Beatle tours every summer. Great friend. She's there. I mean, I said, Julia, I want a list from you. I want you represented in this book. She goes, I don't think I've watched any horror. I hate them. She goes, give me a week to think about it. Cool. She comes back, doesn't tell me, but sends me this amazing, it's probably the longest chapter in the book. It's probably the most intellectual. She did a thesis on the horrors in Shakespeare's works.
Wow.
Wow, right? Wow.
Yeah.
It's like a college thesis. It's like its own book, and I was just, blown away. So when you talk about this being of interest to Beatle fans, there's 9 Beatle direct Beatle connections, 9 Beatle chapters. So for 100 celebrities, that's about a tenth of the book. So, and there's also 9 monkey chapters because I love the monkeys and I have a lot of friends in the monkeys world as well. So I thought, hey, I'll market it to the monkey fans and the Beatle fans, and of course everyone who loves horror and pop culture, and who doesn't love a top 10 list.
Setting aside the book for a moment,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about you because, you've put this book together and you're an entrepreneur. There's no question about it. But you do these various Beatles events, and you also do a horror event. Don't you do a tour?
Well, sure. So, the Beatle people know me strictly from that, but some of them know that along with doing Beatle tours to Liverpool every summer since 1983, we go to London and Liverpool on the Magical History Tour. I host it, I organize it every single year except the past 2 years because of COVID.
Right.
And next summer, www.liverpooltours.com, we're back, we're bringing fans over, God willing, everything will be back to normal. So as an offshoot, somewhere down the line, my friend, my partner, my buddy, he goes, hey, Charles, we're doing great with the Beatles, people, but isn't there any else place you'd like to go that you think others would go? And I didn't miss a beat. I said Transylvania, because I grew up as a Monster kid, a Beatles kid, a Mets fan. I lived for baseball, Monsters, and Beatles, right. And eventually monkeys. And so we said Romania. It's a third world country. It's how we did the research. We found an amazing tour guide. We went ourselves, and it's been one of the most fun and successful trips. We do it every single Halloween. As we're talking, I have a group in Transylvania who are visiting all the sites that are related to the fictional Dracula and the historic and real-life Vlad. And we're combining fiction with history, and they just have the greatest time on the trip. I went for the first 10 years that we were doing it. We've been doing it since 1998. And just people who go on these tours with me, whether it's with the Beatle tours, the Dracula tours, we also do haunted ghost tours, we stay friends. It's really amazing that, exchanging Christmas cards or Halloween cards, we're in touch. When's your next thing? In a few weeks, I'm taking a small group to New Orleans for a ghost tour. And I'm in this because I love the stuff that I do, and no one else does it. So I'd be going, I'd be buying a book that has, Barry Williams and Ruth Buzzy and Chuck McCann. These are people we grew up with. These are our, baby boomer idols. And I hope that there's people who are going to pick this up and go, whoa, the unknown comic, what happened to him? They remember him from the Gong Show. I think that's the treat of the book, is not just the big names, but also those little surprises. And so all the people who've gone on my Beatle tours, people who've gone on Dracula tours, ghost tours, they've come to my conventions, they're saying, Charles, this is great. We thought you'd come out with a Beatle book, but this is exactly, the kind of book we love, and we're so glad you did.
And for folks who want a further marriage of the Beatles and monsters, just remember, in the film Yellow Submarine, we see the Frankenstein monster. He drinks a potion. He becomes John Lennon. So there you go. I just thought of another connection.
Great connection.
Right. So if you could give us just an idea, we already have Julia Baird talking about Shakespeare, but in the book, are we talking about favorite films, favorite monsters? What kind of lists do we have there?
Yeah, so most are, favorite films, because that's the easy go-to for a lot of the people. Some did things like scariest on-stage moments, where, things that happened to them that, scared them that were as a performer. Others did sexiest scenes in horror films. Another one did the most, Vince Martell from Vanilla Fudge, the lead guitarist, did, he loves comedy with his horror, so the top 10 comedy horror films, your Young Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, that kind of thing. And of all of them, William Shatner is the only one who got 2 chapters because he got his top 10 list, and then we did a top 10 list of our favorite William Shatner genre appearances. So, but in the book, you've got a Beatle, you've got a McCartney, you've got a Lennon sister, you got a Karloff, you got Shatner, you got one of the Monkees, one of the Munsters, a bunch of scream queens, we've got a rock and roll, we've got 5 rock and roll Hall of Famers and 1 baseball Hall of Famer. So it's really it's a cross section of pop culture celebrities, and it's fun. It's just pure fun. You can sit down on the can and read a few of the chapters and then get back to it. It's not like a book that you have to read through in one sitting or take seriously.
Paperback.
And just out of curiosity, and I certainly don't want you to give it away because we want people to get the book, but what is the subject? It's piqued my interest. What would be the subject of Pete Best's top 10?
The subject. So he did movies.
He did movies, okay.
Yeah, and it's not tough for him because his brother Rogue, who also manages him, and they're very Rogue and there's Rory. There's 3 brothers in the Best family. Rogue wrote a horror script, a horror movie that hasn't come out yet, a vampire film. So it's not that foreign to the family to have done that. And I don't even know if Rogue helped Pete with the list or Pete came up with himself. But Pete is one of the handful who I let get away with because it's so important, doing a list without giving the reasons why. Right. Gloria Gaynor was another. I thought that was a cool name, and I was just happy enough to get the lists. And I can tell you, because I don't think this is going to stop someone from getting the book, Pete Best's favorite horror movie.
Okay, boy, this is big. I got to know. So here we go. Pete Best's favorite horror movie.
1976, The Omen.
Really?
Great call, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting. We get an insight into what Pete Best. Pete Best is probably watching this movie and going, "I did it all for you, Damien, all for you." This is, who would have thought? Who would have thought? That's great stuff. So
and what we did in the end of the book is we did a ridiculously exhaustive index. If any film was mentioned, Alien Covenant or Andy Warhol's Frankenstein or I Am Legend, even if it's just mentioned once, it's listed in the index. All the contributors are listed in the index, and then at the end we have the ultimate terrible top 10 list, which is the films that were selected the most times by our esteemed celebrities. And I'm definitely not going to tell you what that top 10 list is, because that's that's like the best part of getting to the end and seeing, one film did get like 34 or 40 votes, something like that, and that headed the list. But I bet you can throw out some names, and I bet the names that you come to mind are probably going to be in that list.
Well, I'm going to throw out like Dracula, for example.
You just see, that's a great one, right?
Right, sure.
Dracula, of course, is on the list, and he's also on my cover. And I'm dear friends with Bela Lugosi's granddaughter, Lynn, and also her dad, Bela Lugosi Jr., who's still alive and practices law. And I came real close. I begged them to do a list and to possibly write the forward for the book. Vacillated back and forth. Maybe we'll get it for the second one. I'm working on Bride of the Book of Top 10 Horror Lists as a sequel.
So since we've talked about it, where would people go to get this book?
Easiest is the Amazon link. Just go to Amazon and type in the Book of Top 10, the number 10 horror lists. The better way, that's the easiest and the best way. The better way is to go to our website, because I can send everyone a personalized copy.
Fantastic.
Make it out to their name. I can write, I try to write something different. If I get an order from New Jersey, I say, well, you live in Jersey. Nothing is scarier than that, right?
That's right.
Just kidding. But I try to really personalize. So if someone wants a personalized signed copy, they can do that through the website, which is just Book of Top 10 Horror Lists. And again, it's the number 10, not TEN, bookoftop10horrorlists.com. And it gives you the link, gives you the email, the phone number, any of the above, and we'll just send you a copy. We have it in hardback and in softcover, and it's just so much fun because it's not just lists. You know, if you perused, you saw that it was a bio of everyone who was in there. So
Right.
if there's a few people you didn't know, you know, we know Eddie Deason. We
Sure.
love Eddie Deason. He played Eugene in Grease, voice in Polar Express, SpongeBob, 1940. I mean, endless credits. His Beatle connection, of course. He played Ringo Klaus in I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Yep.
Love him. Great list. I used his list as a template early on to send to others who needed examples. But if you walk down the street and say, hey, did you see the new movie with Eddie Deason? People will not know who you mean. So we have his photo. We have his bio. Each bio I wrote, and I, made it personalized so it fits the book. If he was in any horror movies, we listed the horror movies. Then there's his list, plus one illustration of possibly the poster of one of the films, or a lobby card, or a rare scene from it. So it's fully illustrated, hundreds of photos to accompany, the 100 top 10 lists, and it's a great post-Halloween gift and pre-holiday gift, and get it for Christmas for friends,
Well, again, the Book of Top 10 Horror Lists is the titles. Monsters, celebrities, actors, athletes, and rock stars all list their top 10 horrible moments. If you ever kept yourself up awake at night in the swamps of the Meadowlands wondering what John Lennon's sister thought about horror, now that question will be answered. It'll be a mystery no more. Charles, I got to have you back on at some point to have a real in-depth Beatles discussion. When we do a
I would
Beatles
love that.
show.
I would love that.
For right now,
Go
as
ahead. We're speaking now, I'm signing copies at the Chiller Theater Convention.
Yes.
In Parsippany, which is going on as we speak. And I'd love to come back maybe during the holidays, whatever, and talk some more about the rock and roll stuff. And then I'll give you the big reveal of the next book that's coming.
Oh, interesting. It'll be Pete Best's favorite science fiction movies. No, I'm kidding. Well, you never know. That could be in the sequel. All right. Thank you so much, Charles. It's been a blast talking to you, and best of luck with the book and the shows and the appearances. And we'll have you back, most definitely.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being on, and I hope to speak to you again real soon on the air. Thank you so much.